What's the saddest, lamest thing you've ever done to fit in? When I was 8 I bought Yu-Gi-Oh cards with my birthday money and the next day the kids in my neighborhood stopped playing. You activated their trap card. When I was 14 I was so paranoid about being perceived as geeky that I would revise all of my texts to include misspellings and MySpace era chat speak. Once, I accidentally hit send on the unedited version and in a blind panic immediately followed up with a correction text replacing all the words with their L33TSP34K equivalent. Someone messaged the chat with WTF lol and I hid in the bathroom at lunch for a week. Yeah, that's literally just overthinking crap to the max. Said I was born in Connecticut in kindergarten when we were making a map of where everyone was born because all the cool kids were born out of state. My mom ended up ratting me out at parent-teacher conferences. Frick Connecticut. When I was around 12 years old I was bullied. At one point I thought my bullies would stop bullying me if I joined them. So one day they started bullying this other kid. This was one of the nicest kids in class. After a few minutes I saw the tears in his eyes and realized that I've been in his position daily, and I stopped on the spot. I felt like a jerk, and get ashamed when I think about it. In 6th grade, I was picked on a lot, so one time, everyone is picking on this girl, and I join in. Turns out, people were picking on her because she liked me. I licked a brick wall once when I was 5 because I wanted to be in my friend's older brother's gang. The next day the headmistress gave an assembly on peer pressure. I cut a Nike logo out of a shirt and very shittily sewed it over the Fruit of the Loom logo on my school jacket. Everybody noticed immediately. That's cool though. In 7th grade, 1997, JNCO jeans were all the rage. I wanted to fit in but I didn't want to be a sellout and wear JNCOs. So, skinny little me who normally wore size 28 waist pants got a pair of size 48 brown corduroy pants from Goodwill and wore those instead. Got made fun of less, somehow. 2 things I did in high school. I tried running for school president against the most popular kids in the school and putting up a bunch of posters. I got 3 votes total from my tiny friend group. I love them. I tried out for the basketball team. Me, a 5'7", 5'8"-ish nerdy skinny dude who was even nerdier and even skinnier back then, against a bunch of super tall athletic guys who have been playing basketball since forever. I was gasping for dear life and puking after every drill. I didn't make even the first cut for JV. Begged my mom to buy me etnies, the skateboarding shoes, WHRN. I was 10. She finally did but I broke down crying and begged her to take them back once I learned they were $40. Looking at it now, back when skate stuff was in style fitting and was much less expensive, now Adidas and Nike is the way to go and those sneakers start where high-end skate stuff ended, with many of the sneakers costing 2-3 times of a name brand skate shoes. Lied that I was half Japanese so that I wouldn't be ridiculed for liking anime. First week of college in the UK, and I hadn't really made any friends yet, and kind of just knew a couple of people from my classes in passing, as I was, and still am, quite reserved and shy, and didn't really know how to approach anyone. One afternoon I noticed it was quite busy out in the courtyard, and decided to make myself seem more interesting by running up a wall and then backflipping off of it. In retrospect, I'd give myself a 8/10 for spontaneity, but a 4/10 for execution, as I botched the landing and landed directly on my knees, splitting 2 large bloody denim holes, and only 3-4 people at most even saw me do it. One afternoon I noticed it was quite busy out in the courtyard, and decided to make myself seem more interesting by running up a wall and then backflipping off of it. I can't even begin to understand this line of reasoning, but I love it and I want to party with you forever. I constantly did favors for people who I eventually realized only liked me cause I was a doormat. But for a couple years there though I felt as if I was in the group. That's a terrible feeling, and I know it too well. Once I started saying no to things, I lost a lot of friends. We had a kid in school who would style his hair like Jimmy Neutron and every time he would answer a question he would first yell brain blast, and the whole class would cringe. Oh my god, that hurts. I went to some church where they released the demons from some kid, and at one point everyone started speaking in tongues. I pretended to speak in tongues. I suspect everyone was. Smoking. My best friend is a smoker and always wanted me to come outside with her, so it would be a group of smokers and me. So I started with just a few puffs here and there, stopped after a while. Then I went to Paris for 4 months, picked it up again. Now I was buying my own pack and crap. Then one day it was raining and I was not about to get my weave wet. Last time I smoked a cigarette, I regret ever starting. I know that feel. I started smoking in high school because all the cool kids smoked during lunch breaks. I was so desperate to fit in and prove that I'm cool as well. Anyway, I have been smoking for next 6 years, quitting and returning to it. Currently, I'm a non-smoker, haven't had a cigarette in my mouth for 3 months, and I definitely do not want to go back. Me. Went to Awana and youth group for years and climbed to the top of Awana as the best verse reciter and one of the high-ranking members of our chapter. Even long after I in my heart of hearts stopped believing in Christianity. I didn't want to be shunned or lose the people I thought were my friends. My little sister pretended to like Hannah Montana for about a year so she could make friends and fit in with girls her age. She didn't actually like the show, but bought shirts, sneakers, backpacks, etc. to have something to impress people at school church with. After that she became seen. Now she's a hippie. I did Awana too, and I was super competitive about it. Like I would mock other children for not saying verses and I had to do the most sections every night. I rode my bike halfway down Killer Hill, big sledding hill every small town has. I say halfway because that's about the time the bike started riding me down the hill instead. I felt butt over tea kettle the rest of the way down and fricked myself up. When I finally came to a stop I ended up just picking up my bike and walking the couple blocks home so the other kids wouldn't see me cry. I was 24. Bullying another classmate when I was 13. Bullies were the cool kids in class, and it was pretty much being with them, or being a laughing stock. My friend got beaten up by them, and I decided that I wasn't going to end up the same way, so I decided I should emulate them. Frick that. I still regret it, because they were still buttholes, and I made at least half a year of someone's life worse. I don't want anyone else to suffer the same fate as my classmate. Don't beat yourself up about it. It was a while ago and it seems like there wasn't much choice. It's nice that you realize now how bad it was, but back then you could have done a lot worse. I knew people who were a lot worse at 13 with drugs, sectarianism, etc. There was a kid at school who had a shirt that said I make my own rules. He was an 8th grader while I was a 5th grader, and the best kickball player to ever walk into the school. I decided I was going to be cool like him, so I took a white t-shirt and red marker and wrote I make my own rules. Wore it one time. Got laughed at, deservingly. This is an opposite story. I remember in 5th grade or early middle school, I was friends with these 2 girls. We'd gone to the mall together, courtesy of my mom, and done the usual shopping thing. I remember I bought a Paramore CD, and while we were listening to it on the way home they started talking meanly about another girl in our class. I knew who she was and had never had anything bad to say about her. I just kept quiet the rest of the way after saying she's not mean, so what do you have against her? I ended up becoming best friends with that girl all through middle and high school. She was a freaking fantastic friend. I just wish I wasn't so freaking shy and anxious so I could work up the nerve to talk to try and reconnect over Facebook, since it's been 5 years since we graduated. Literally just say hey, how've you been? It doesn't cost anything to try and she's probably thought of you too. Don't let friendships wither away. Lower myself by acting like a dickhead for their amusement. I knew they didn't truly like me as a friend. I just hung out with them anyway cause I didn't feel like I had anyone else. They probably knew that and took advantage of it by making me feel worse about myself than I already did. And still today as an adult I'm trying to find people I actually fit in with and don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not for the sake of having friends. When I was 10, Pokemon trading was the big thing. Wanting to look like I knew what I was doing, I went through with a trade that involved giving my holographic Charizard card for 2 lesser value Pokemon cards. It freaking haunts me to this day. pretended to have a football player boyfriend in high school and picking on nerdy kids in an attempt to fit in with the popular girls. It was always very uncomfortable hanging out with them because I felt like I needed to prove myself constantly. I'm a nerdy lesbian. School got much better once I just embraced that and sat with my brothers and sisters at the band geek art kid table at lunch. I just realized the other girls never liked me very much during school days, and it's probably factored into why I don't make an effort to make female friends as an adult. This is a memory that still makes me cringe every time I remember, though it's been almost a decade. Jeez, I feel old. It was at a family reunion. My mother's conservative, traditional values side of the family. The adults were talking about a beloved TV show. Little Aiden, thinking himself to be fairly savvy, blurted out his 2 cents worth. Poor, dumb me. Oh, yeah, I love that show. Especially the episode where the guy eats all the kids' pudding. They were talking about Everybody Loves Raymond. I was referring to an episode of 2.5 Men I had seen on public television by accident. What they said, what I said, we're all talking English, but we're speaking different languages. Everybody Loves Raymond is my dog's favorite show. Wanted to sit at the cool kids table in 6th grade, but to do that I had to leave the table that the other lonely kids sat at. I did without regrets at that point. Now I ponder 2 things. If I gave up a great friendship for a couple weeks of feeling good, or 2, if I made him cry by accident, because I do sometimes these days. Told my class that my father died when I was a baby when asked if I'd be coming to the father-daughter dance. In reality, my father is a narcissistic, selfish butthole who just simply never loved me. Also, one time I told everyone my mom was a lawyer. She was a stripper. In high school I wanted to neither get A's or work out because no one likes someone who's too smart or too muscular. Thought about this a couple months ago and realized that I was actively trying to be as average as possible. Teenage thinking. My Weibo girlfriend loved the Weibo style, decora, and my 13/14-year self thought that hey, if I dressed that way she'll like me more. So I, a 13-year white male, started dressing as a Weibo girl with skirts, pink hair and all. I even wore a skirt, neon pink leggings underneath black torn ones, a black shirt and a Naruto headband as a necklace for my school picture. I need to see that picture. I faked I had an accent growing up because the ladies thought it was cute. It wasn't an accent. I just had a speech impediment and could not pronounce some word with R in it. It only occurred sometimes, so I would constantly make sure I was intentionally butchering my words. I grew up in Chicago and moved to Colorado when I was young. Everyone thought it was a Chicago accent, so I kept it up and sounded like an idiot for the rest of 7th grade. Middle schooler are dumb. I remember these 2 dudes, girly gossip type of dudes, asked me an opinion of a girl that was sitting at another table across from us. I made a vomit noise when they asked me how she looked, and then they turned around and told her what I did. Like a true 10-year-old, I lied my way out of that and felt bad for the rest of the coming days. I did it, not really to fit in, but because I thought it'd be funny. But now that I'm older, it wasn't funny and it wasn't cool whatsoever. Days later, I tell one of the kids that it wasn't cool, telling her I did that. Of course it wasn't cool for me to that noise. Big kid logic, am I right? Anyhow, he told me she didn't even believe him when he told her I did that vomit noise. So it was in the wind essentially. Lesson learned. Treat others as you would want to be treated. And never, never tell your deepest secrets to any school kid. I don't care if you're cousins. I don't care if you've been friends since 1st grade. Don't tell no one your opinions of others. I was always taught to treat others how I would want to be treated, but it never stuck to me until that day and that very moment. What made the whole thing worse was this girl I made fun of was actually a nice girl. She was a big girl, but she was nice to me, never said nothing mean. God gave me a lesson I still haven't forgotten to this day. This happened on an overseas water polo tour. It was our high school team touring through Hungary for 2 weeks, so we were spending a lot more time together than we usually do. I was about 17. There were these 3 guys you could call the cool guys. They went out partying at night apart from the rest of the group. We were about 15 in total. They were also some of the best players in the team. So as the tour progressed they were all bunking Tojita and started with this inside joke that they are a gang called the Hustlers after hearing some rap song. Because I usually chilled with them, this really got on my nerves as a lot of times they would throw in my face lines like "you can't come with Hustlers only" or stuff along those lines. They also had these irritating chants and stuff about the Hustlers and how cool they were during our training sessions and games. So one night I am like, can't I just join the Hustlers? At first they were like no. Then they realized they could use this to make an butt of me. So they say I can join if I shave off my bed lizards, hair that come from you pubes on you stomach, and all of my pubes. I was so desperate to be part of the clique. I shaved it all off. The rest of the tour I had a horrible rash all over my privates. I was being mocked by the rest of the guys. And I was only a joke to the Hustlers, who at least let me go out with them by this time. Was cringing a lot while writing this. Can't believe I wanted to fit in with those guys. Being mean to a kid named Steve. Steve was a bit of a geek and a loner, and just kept to himself. I am ashamed to say that I, for no reason other than to amuse my peers, picked on Steve. I've tried to find him to apologize, but he doesn't seem to have a social media account and no one I went to HS with knows what he's doing now. I took part in a game called Annihilate Mini in elementary school. The premise of the game was to chase me down. My nickname was Mini because I was the smallest kid in class, and tackle me. That was pretty lame in hindsight. Going to date myself, but I saved up enough to buy a members only jacket, and was so disgustingly proud of it. Couple of us boys went out riding around drinking malt liquor, after a trip to the local Wendy's and filling up on the salad bar, a souped up Monte Carlo SS, and I vomited all over my jacket, and ended up chucking it out the window. I constantly lie about where I'm from. I have a fairly high-flying career which involves loads of traveling and meeting new people, and the only thing my hometown is known for is a huge child sex abuse scandal. I can't bring up my hometown without being asked if I'm either a pedophile or if I was abused as a kid. People for some reason think it's acceptable to ask me this as a joke. In my private life I tend to just come out with the truth. Yup, I was raped as a kid. Thanks for bringing that up and watch them squirm and grovel. But professionally this obviously isn't wise, so I just say that I'm from the nearest big city so that my accent still checks out, but people don't feel the need to make hilarious comments about the worst thing that ever happened to me. And I really hate that I feel like I need to do this. Despite the horrible things that happened to me there, I still love my hometown and am proud of it. There's a very strong idea that nothing good ever comes out of my town and everyone there is backwards and stupid. Surely people like me that have overcome trauma and poverty to become a success should speak out, but it's easier just to lie, so I do, and it sucks. During French lessons at school at around 14 I was predicted A for French speaking because I could do a proper French accent, but it wasn't cool in class so I used to speak with the same crappy accent as everyone else. In 8th grade, I decided I needed to dye my hair blonde, was brunette, to try to fit in with more popular girls. My best friend fit in with them and I didn't because my body was still underdeveloped after years of gymnastics. So I convinced my mom and we bought hair dye from a box. My mom self-dyed her own hair all the time, so how hard could it be? But my hair was pretty long so my mom, who has always had very short hair, almost pixie style, missed a lot of spots, and on top of that after we washed and dried it my hair was orange. I cried all Friday night knowing how I would have to face all the butthole kids in my grade. It was bad for about a week but somehow I pretended it is exactly how I wanted my hair and got through it. Letting it grow out sucked, but that was the worst because it was a ton of boys that ended up making fun of me and the girls didn't care, pitied me a little bit. Cringe. I got one of those shaved on the side with full hair on top haircuts a few months ago. Thank frick I'm back to my old self now. They're not so bad if you make it your own instead of the standard fuckboy quiff. I spent several months of my freshman year constantly going out with my newly found group of friends. Restaurants, concerts, brunches, you name it. I spent a crap ton of money on activities that I don't like with people I don't care for. But worse than that is the fact that I completely neglected my needs as an introvert. When I was a kid and someone called me out on doing something lame, I put the blame on others, saying it was because of them, to avoid looking lame, not fit in. Basically sold out my friends. I'm ashamed of it now. Really looked up to my outgoing, confident buddy in 6th grade. He always wore the Doug outfit, sweater vest with a white t-shirt. Thought that was the coolest. So I get my mom to buy me a few sweater vests and white shirts. Surprisingly enough, kids at school did not think I was cool. In the mid 2000s, when girls were only into skater guys, I bought a complete deck, scratched up the bottom to make it look like I used it, and carried it everywhere. Needless to say, I didn't skate. The worst part was that I was in college. I was a motherfucking college student engaging in this behavior. Hey, at least the reasoning was solid. I used to see how everyone else was sitting, how their feet legs were positioned, what they had on their desk or around them, how their hands were placed, and copy whichever way seemed the most popular. I was terrified of doing anything that made me look weird. One time on the bus, kids had their feet on the floor, but there was a heat vent below my seat and it made my legs feel way too hot. I didn't want to be weird and put my feet up, or turn my body, so I sat the entire bus ride with the heat blasting against my legs. After that, my legs were all dry and red and cracked. I'm better now and don't really have issues. The only thing that I still get weird and self-conscious about is my windshield wipers. For whatever reason, I look around to see how fast everyone else's are and try to match it. For some reason I feel awkward if my windshield wipers are faster than other people's. Don't know why it still bothers me. I know it's completely irrational. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.